Hi, everyone. Welcome to the channel. My name is Nick Cosgrove, and I'm back with this week's No Filter Q&A. This is the episode where I answer all questions related to diet, training, and supplementation that I've received over the past 7 days from our in-house clients, online clients, as well as a few of our online followers. Remember, if you have any questions related to your diet, training, supplements you're taking, not taking, considering taking, please feel free to email me those questions at nick@foreverfitperformance.com. Or you can also DM me your questions on my Instagram at @fitcosgrove_. All right, so let's get started with this week's No Filter Q&A with question number 1. Nick, I get a sharp pain in my lower back when I do overhead barbell presses. Should I stop doing them or just lighten the weight? I usually max out at about 100 pounds for 5 to 6 reps. Thanks. It's really hard for me to assess the problem unless I can see the way your technique in the gym, the way that you're doing the exercises. So I'm gonna say this: if you're doing a standing barbell military, first of all, if it's hurting you, that's a bad sign, right? You shouldn't be doing any exercise that's hurting you. However, it could be your technique is off. So what I would recommend you do when you're doing a standing barbell military press is use what we call a staggered stance. So one leg forward, one leg back. I generally recommend my clients to keep their dominant leg back to support the L4, L5 region. A lot of people, when they're doing standing barbell military presses in the gym, I watch when they're doing this exercise, they keep their feet together. When you do that, you're hyperextending your lower back even more, and then you have a weight coming up and down and compressing hard on those discs and those spinal erectors. So by putting that one leg back, that's going to help stabilize. Now, let's say you're already doing that. The next thing I notice here, you're saying that you're doing 100 pounds for 5 to 6 reps. In my opinion, the weight is too heavy. It's not that 100 pounds is too heavy, but if you're only able to perform 5 to 6 reps of 100 pounds, if I were you, I would lighten the load so you're going to get at least 10 to 15 repetitions. And I've talked about this before about staying in double digits for most of your exercises. Unless you're doing a drop set or a triple drop set, or maybe you're doing a few giant sets, my recommendation when doing basic straight sets and circuit training, keep it in double digits. So if you can do, you're saying you're 100 pounds for 5 to 6 reps. If it were me, I drop that down, maybe go to 75 pounds and get 10 to 12 reps. That could help. Now, finally, one thing you want to make sure too is if you do have any lower back issues, that you're trying to strengthen your lower back, and you can do that by doing hyperextensions. You can do some plyolateral deadlifts. You can do some trap bar deadlifts. Even doing things like seated rows, that will help strengthen that area as well. So make sure you're taking care of your back. And I notice this problem with a lot of guys. A lot of guys, they like training the areas that the show areas. They like training their chest, their biceps, their triceps, their delts, but they neglect the back. So make sure you're training your back, especially your lower back. And if you're doing all that, in worst case scenario, barbell presses might not be for you. I love standing barbell military presses. Personally, I include them in every single shoulder workout I do throughout my program. So if I'm doing like a four-week cycle on a training split, I put the barbell military press in every shoulder workout. I don't take that out. It's not an exercise that I'd recommend beginners do, though. It's more of an advanced movement. And if you suffer from chronic lower back issues or you've had an injury, I really wouldn't recommend doing that exercise, no. But I don't see anything wrong with doing it as long as you have a strong lower back, you're keeping your reps in double digits and using that staggered stance. All right, next question. Nick, did your parents encourage you to lift weights when you were younger? My son is 5 years old and wants to join a gym, but my son is 15 years old and wants to join a gym, but I think he's too young and will slow down his natural growth spurt by doing so. Yeah, 5 years old would be too young. So when I was younger, no, my parents did not encourage me to go to the gym, but only because working out with weights wasn't very popular when I first started working out with weights. I mean, social media wasn't around just yet. Not that many people were doing it as they are today. You look at the prevalence of social media, and now you've got the CrossFit Games. CrossFit's global. There's bodybuilding shows every weekend. There's powerlifting competitions every month. So weightlifting has become a huge, huge, huge event now for a lot of people. It's part of their day-to-day lives. But my parents, for example, neither one of them went to the gym when they were my age. It just wasn't popular. So when I was 15 years old, I mean, there weren't many 15-year-old kids lifting weights. These days, though, I notice a lot of more younger people are in the gym. I have clients sending me their kids to work with. I work with them online. My youngest client right now is 14 years old. So it's more common, it's more popular, and we see the benefits of weightlifting now. Now, as far as stunting your growth spurt, there are no studies that show that. That to me is just bro science, right? There's no truth to that.
It doesn't stunt your growth. I started lifting weights when I was 15. It didn't stunt my growth. If anything, I think it helped me grow. Lifting weights teaches you discipline. It really does. I find it, just teaches you, okay, I got to stay on track. I got my workout in. And then if you get on top of your workouts, then the diet follows too. So I think it's actually a good thing to incorporate at a young age, because it grounds people better, right? As opposed to going out to the clubs or going out drinking every night or eating bad food. And like, no, I've got my workout. So, and I've talked about that in the past too, how important I think it is to actually incorporate weightlifting into your day-to-day activities at least 4 or 5 times a week. So no, my parents didn't encourage me, but they did encourage me to stay active and fit when I was younger. They had me doing soccer, they had me doing hockey, they had me doing all kinds of sports. So they encouraged me in other ways. But I'm sure if the gym was as popular then as it is today, they probably would have encouraged me, because they know the benefits of weightlifting. They understand. So if I were you, it's up to you, but I don't think it's too young to allow your son into the gym. But you know what I would do though? I would actually have maybe a few sessions with the trainer, so that your son can actually learn how to execute proper form and technique. Don't just have him go in there by himself. That's the one mistake I made when I was younger. I couldn't afford a trainer, but at that time, I'm sure if I had one, I would have probably made a lot less mistakes, because I made a lot of mistakes in my first 3 or 4 years of training. So it's good to have someone in there who's an expert, even if it's for a few sessions, just to teach you some basic stuff. That can really make a huge difference. So I don't think 15 is too young. I think it's actually a good thing, and maybe go with them. But yeah, I would get a trainer for him, just for at least, like I said, a few sessions, just to get him in the door and get his feet wet, so he understands how to train properly, and proper form, proper technique. That's crucial. Proper breathing, proper tempo, speed. All that stuff's important. So yeah, I think that's a great age to get in the gym. Okay. Hi Nick, do you think people should change their style of training as they age? No, I don't think people should change their style of training. I think they should change their approach to training, though, as they get older. Listen, as we get older, there's more wear and tear on our body, right? We have more mileage. So you're bound to have a few injuries, some aches and pains along the way. I know now at 37 years old, I have a little bit more pain in my joints than I did when I was 27 years old. That doesn't mean I can't do anything, but when I'm in the gym, I usually take a little bit longer to warm up. Back when I was in my 20s, I just walk into the gym and start lifting heavy weights. These days, it takes me a little bit longer to warm up. I can still lift those heavy weights, but I warm up, make sure my body's warmed up efficiently, and I train with the utmost intensity still, but I approach each workout a little bit more methodically. So for example, if it's leg day and I know I've been having problems with my knee for a week, I might say, I'm not going to be able to squat 315 today, and that's okay. Back in my 20s, I wouldn't think like that. I'd like, oh, I'm going to squat 315 regardless how much pain I am. No pain, no gain, all that bullshit. So these days, I'm a little bit more methodical of my thinking and think, okay, well, maybe I can't even squat today. Maybe I'm going to have to just do extra sets of lunges, or maybe I'll have to do some extra sets of leg extensions, or maybe I'll do hip thrusts instead to work my glutes as opposed to working my quads. Maybe my quads need a break that day. So it's listening to your body more. I think that's very important. It's crucial as you get older to really listen to your body. And I mean, really listen to your body, not listen to your body like you're feeling lazy one day. I don't want to go to the gym. No, not that. I'm not talking about that. I'm like, yeah, force yourself to go to the gym. But once you get there, listen, if your body's saying, hey, I can't do this today, it just doesn't feel right, listen to it. I always tell my clients, if something doesn't feel right, tell me, and we're going to switch out the exercise for that day, for that week, or maybe for a few months. And that's fine. But it's important to have alternatives. And that's why I always stress the importance of having a vast vocabulary of exercises at your disposal. So you say, okay, I can't do this today, but I can do this, or I can't do this, but I can do this. So that's all I think needs to happen as we get older. We just have to approach each workout a little bit more mindful and think, okay, how am I going to get through this workout and not injure myself or make the injury I have worse? Okay. And that's like anything, as you get older, your training should evolve, right? You should be learning more exercises, learning how to execute proper form technique, as I talked about just earlier. That's important too. So yeah, I don't think you have to change your style just because you're older. I mean, if you've been bodybuilding, let's say for 40 years, and all of a sudden you're 65 years old, why would you just stop bodybuilding and switch over to, let's say, doing yoga? I mean, if you like yoga, do yoga as well, but you don't have to say, well, now I'm 65, so that's it for bodybuilding, I'm moving on to yoga. That doesn't make any sense to me. If you go in with that mindset that I'm older now, so I'm a little bit more frail, I'm a little bit more weak, that's what you're going to become. Okay, so don't baby yourself. Just listen to your body. That's my recommendation. Okay. Okay. Nick, when is your interview with Jim Lord's podcast coming out? I heard a clip of it on Spotify earlier this week. Yeah, I heard that clip too. Someone sent it to me and I put it on my IG stories. So I did an interview with Joe from Jim Lord's podcast earlier this week. I think we did it on Wednesday or Thursday. I can't remember. All the days are the same right now. So we did about a 45-minute podcast. It went well. He's a gym owner in New York City. So we had a lot to talk about, he lives in a very expensive city. I live in a very expensive city. So the cost of training people in gyms and business and how we had to reinvent our businesses during COVID-19. It was really fun. We talked a lot. We had a lot of good talks about business, life. He just had a newborn. He was on very little sleep. I've been recording content for our new online app that's coming out in 2023. So I was filming content the night previously, and I was up till about 3 a.m. filming content with our videographer. So I was on very low sleep, but we got it done. It was fun. I think Joe said to me it's going to probably be out in about 3 weeks. So they have to edit it, and they have some other podcasts that are coming out beforehand. So look for it. I would say probably first or second week of November. I will definitely put a link to the interview in my IG stories once it comes out. And if you're not following me on Instagram, just remember my underscore is my Instagram name is fitcosgrove_. So yeah, probably first or second week in November. All right, next question. Hey Nick, do you have any tips for recurring cold sore outbreaks? I follow a clean diet and try to get lots of sleep, but for some reason I get a cold sore at least 1 to 2 times a month. Cold sores, herpes simplex virus, fairly common. I've had quite a few clients suffer from them over the years. And what I find works for a lot of people that I work with, 2 things you can do, especially if you want to go the natural route. One is you have to look at 2 of your amino acids, lysine being one, arginine being the other. Foods that are high in arginine can actually cause cold sore outbreaks, right? Whereas foods high in lysine can actually prevent them. And reduce or at least reduce the occurrence of them. I shouldn't say prevent them, but they can reduce the occurrence of them. So you want to look for foods that are high in lysine and low in arginine. Here's the problem though. Arginine is actually a very good amino acid. It's in a lot of foods that we have as bodybuilders. So, if you think of a whey protein powder, oatmeal, brown rice, those foods all contain very high arginine. So if you're someone who is prone to cold sores, those are foods that you might want to avoid, or you might just want to lower your portions of how often you're doing them, your meal frequency of those particular foods. Now, foods that are high in lysine, for example, salmon's very high in lysine. There's a few eggs are really high in lysine. I mean, there's a whole list of foods that are high in lysine and that are low in arginine. You can just Google and see them. Now, the thing is, if you're going to go the natural route, I would supplement with more foods that are higher in lysine and lower in arginine. On top of that, though, I would add in a lysine supplement, 500 milligrams to 1,000 milligrams a day. That should be enough. And that can help. Now, if it doesn't help, there's another way you can go, another route you can go, and you want to talk to your doctor about this, but could be supplementing with Valtrax. Now, Valtrax is not an over-the-counter drug, so you'd have to get a prescription for that from your doctor, but that's actually used to treat shingles, and I believe it's actually used to treat herpes. So the reason I know this is because I've actually had clients in the past who've suffered from shingles. I mean, don't forget, I had trained a lot of clients who are now in their 60s, late 50s. And I'd say I think it was about 5 years ago, I don't know what happened, but like I had 7 clients all get shingles within like a 6-month period. It was crazy. None of them had their shots, and they all had to go on Valtrax. So that's another route you can explore. But remember, guys, I'm not a doctor, so I'm not telling you to go on Valtrax. I'm saying talk to your doctor, and you can look at the pros and cons. You have to remember, with any drug, there's going to be some adverse side effects. So research the drug you're taking, and that's pretty much with every drug. There are side effects. So research the drug you're taking and say, okay, do I want to go down this route or do I want to go this route? Me personally, I would try to go to the natural route first. I'm a firm believer in trying to use our natural resources to the best of our ability. If that doesn't work, okay, I'm open to going down to the pharmaceutical route. So yeah, you can try that. Foods high in lysine, foods low in arginine, supplement with lysine, 500 milligrams to 1,000 milligrams a day. See if that helps. Get a lot of sleep, of course, get a lot of rest, get a lot of exercise. And if it doesn't help, might want to talk to your doctor about going on something like Valtrex. All right, next question. Okay. Nick, I feel that online training is a bit overrated. I hired an online coach to work with me for 3 months, but it felt I was just getting generic advice with rarely any changes made to the plan. I also think that my trainer was giving the same training program to all of our clients on a weekly basis rather than working with each client as an individual. Do you think it's worth the price, or am I better off just working with a trainer in my area? You know what? You're right. Online training has become heavily diluted. And the reason for that is I used to joke about anyone can become a trainer. And it was true. You can get certified if you want in 3 months. There are some certifications that you can get in a weekend. Now, take that in person and now move it online. These people don't even need to go get their certifications. They can just, I'm a trainer, and they start an online training company, start an online app. It's pretty simple to do. And they start handing out diet plans, and they start handing out training programs. Not that difficult. If they're marketing themselves, maybe they won a few fitness competitions, maybe they won a bikini competition, maybe they won a bodybuilding show, or they won 2 shows, maybe they won their pro card. And then they use that as their marketing. I did it, so I can help you. And I have to tell you, as someone who's been in the industry for 20 years, it pisses me off. It really does. Because I've worked really, really hard to learn as much as I possibly can about basic dietary nutrition and training science, right? When I say training science, I mean how to train the body based on human anatomy, human physiology, and how to, troubleshoot when you're working with someone, let's say, who has Crohn's or colitis or IBS, or they have patellofemoral syndrome, they've had a herniated disc. Like, all these things you learn through experience. You can't learn it in a textbook, no, but you have to have some experience. But a lot of it you do learn in a textbook, right? And these people aren't even certified. So when I hear stories like this of trainers handing out copy and paste generic programs, yeah, it pisses me off, because they're making good money. A lot of these coaches are hired, they're charging $500 a month for online. They're sitting on their ass, they're just handing out copy and paste programs. And I don't like that. There's a reason I don't always, but there's a reason when my online roster is full, I say it's full. It's because I don't want to take on too many people, because I feel I'm going to give them a devalued service, right? And I don't want to do that. So if I cannot offer top-notch service, I'm not going to take the client on. I'll say, I'm going to have a spot in my schedule in a month from now. Would you like to work together then? And then I'll be able to give you better service. I'll be able to customize the plan for you. I think that online training programs should be customized just the way that you would customize your program in the gym, in person with your client. So I'm sorry, because that is a bad experience, but it's not rare. I've heard experiences like that from numerous people, and it really gives the industry a bad reputation. And as someone who works in this industry and makes a living in this industry, it pisses me off, because there's a lot of good coaches out there, myself included, who take this job very seriously. And if someone is working with me, whether it's in person or online, I'm going to give them my full attention. If there's a question I don't know, I'm going to try to find the answer. And if I can't find the answer, I'll refer out, right? But to just hand out these copy and paste programs, to me, not only is it lazy and unprofessional, it's dangerous. Especially when it comes to dietary nutrition. If you're giving someone foods that, for all they might have an allergy. I know a lot of these coaches don't even ask their clients, are you allergic to this? What happens when you eat this food? So you have to really be proactive with your clients as a trainer. You can't just be handing out these programs that are one size fits all. So to answer that question, I don't think that all online trainers are bad, but unfortunately, I think the majority of them right now are. And I think it's a fad. Hopefully it's going to end. And then the real trainers will be left out there. And then what I call the fake trainers, the weekend trainers, they'll get exposed, and then they'll go off and do some other job. Okay, because like I said, as someone who's worked in this industry for 20 years, it's frustrating, and it pisses me off that there's people out there doing that. They're basically stealing people's money and just passing them off programs that you could easily just do a Google search and find them online yourself. All right. Nick, when doing bent over rows, should my legs be hip width apart or feet together? I swear I did them feet together with you in the gym when I was visiting Vancouver, but the YouTube videos say to keep legs apart. Yeah, so every trainer is gonna have their own approach to the way they do an exercise, right? I mean, I'm not gonna agree with every single coach that I work with and say, that's how you should perform a bent over row, they might not agree with me. But what I find works for the majority of people is if you're doing a bent over barbell row or bent over rear delt raise, is keeping your feet together. And the reason I recommend that is if your feet are apart, you're in what we call a power stance. Now, power stance sounds great. You're going to be able to lift a lot of weight. Problem is when your feet are apart, I feel that the client or the individual, whoever's training, uses a lot of their hip flexors. I've seen it. They're using their hip flexors to stabilize, and they're also using their lower back and their glutes to help lift the weight up. Now, if you're doing a bent over barbell row, you're trying to work your upper back, right? Trying to work your lats. So you're not trying to use your glutes and your hamstrings and your spinal erectors to help you lift this weight up. So I find when you keep your feet together, you turn off the lower body. So the lower body can no longer help you. So you're isolating the upper body. So a lot of times when I get people to do a bent over exercise, whether it's a bent over barbell row or a rear delt fly, I will ask them, I'm like, okay, their first natural stance is to keep the legs together, or sorry, to keep the legs apart. And I'll say, okay, I want you to keep your feet together. Right away, it throws them off. It throws their balance off. But after a few sets, they pick it up right away. And they're like, wow, I feel that way more. We might have to lighten the weight too for the first few times we do the exercise. But after a few weeks, they can really notice a difference. So if you're doing a bent over barbell row, my recommendation, I'm not saying you have to do this, but my recommendation is try keeping your feet together. And that way you're going to isolate the upper back. You're not going to use the lower body to help you lift the weight. Okay. Being in a power stance is great on certain movements. I'm not saying keep your feet together on every movement you do in the gym, but when you're doing bent over work, like bent over barbell row, I recommend keeping a feet close together. Even with T-bar rows, I try to get my clients to keep their legs as close together as possible, even though they've got a bar coming up between their thighs. But I don't let them do a wide stance because then I find that they're going to be able to cheat and use their lower body. So try it out and see which way you prefer, but I would recommend keeping your feet together when doing a bent over exercise. Hi, Nick, why does the cardio get done after weights and not before on your fat loss program? Cardio can be done before the weights, but generally I recommend, it depends how you structure your workout throughout the day. So let's say you're someone who has a 9-to-5 job and you only have an hour to spend in the gym. That's it. That's the only time you're going to go in the gym. Now, if you work out first thing in the morning, let's say you work out at like 6:30 in the morning, my recommendation then, and this, again, this is individual based on the person I'm working with, but this is one of my programs that I just put out on the app. So it's just a program anyone can follow. My recommendation is to, at that point, eat a meal, have your oatmeal, go to the gym, train with weights, and then for your last 15, 20 minutes, however much cardio you can do it after the weights, because then you're actually just using fat as your primary fuel source. But let's say you're someone who likes to do cardio in the morning, you have a little bit more flexibility in your schedule, and you say, you know what, I like to do my cardio in the morning and I can do my weights after work. I have a few clients who do that. So then they wake up, they go to the gym, or they might even go for a run outside and they do their cardio in a fasted state. And then they eat breakfast or lunch and dinner or whatever, and then they go to the gym in the evening and they train, and that's it. As long as your cardio is being done in a depleted state, you're going to use fat as your primary fuel source. And I know there's people that argue and say, no, that's old school mentality, whatever. I know it works. I've used it myself for years. I've used it with clients for years. It works. I'm sure there's other ways to burn fat. I'm not suggesting that there's not, but I know this works. Okay, so I stick with what I know. Doing cardio in a fasted state will allow you to burn fat more efficiently and more quickly, period. Okay, so I'm not saying that the cardio has to be done after the weights. I'm just saying that it should be done in a fasted state, whether that's first thing in the morning on an empty stomach or immediately after the weight session. Now, what happens with a lot of people is they go to the gym. This is what the common person does in the morning. They don't eat in the morning, right? They go to the gym, they do 20 minutes on the treadmill, they run really hard, and then they're exhausted. Then they go do the weights. Well, by that time you get to the weights, you're so tired, you're not going to be able to work your muscles as hard as if you did at the beginning of the workout. That's why I don't recommend doing cardio right before the weights. Okay. That's the only reason, but you can structure it however you like. That's just my recommendation. Do your cardio in a fasted state, so you use fat as your primary fuel source as opposed to carbohydrates. Okay. Nick, your thoughts on using the ECA stack to burn body fat? I use the ECA stack from 2002 to 2004, and then I used it again in 2006. So I have a lot of experience using ECAs. And I'm going to tell you right now, don't do it. Yeah, it's legal here in Canada. Ephedrine is legal. In the States, I believe ephedrine is illegal. Here we sell it as a nasal condition. So you can just walk into your local supplement store and pick up ephedrine. Then you can just go walk into Shoppers Drug Mart or London Drugs or your local drugstore and pick up caffeine and aspirin. You're set. And it does work. But here's the problem. There's a lot of nasty side effects with ephedrine. One of them is irritability. I remember when I used to take ephedrine, I'd get irritated very quickly, very quickly. Another thing, it does suppress your appetite for sure. So that's one of the reasons the ECA stack works really well. It does, I mean, caffeine also suppresses your appetite. But with that said, I found that it only suppressed my appetite for a period of time. And then when I'm becoming down off the drugs, because you don't take the drugs all day long. I usually take 2 ephedrine in the morning, 2 caffeine in the morning, 2 aspirin in the morning. That was it. So by the time 5 or 6 o'clock rolls around, I was famished. I was starving because the effects were wearing off. So I'd overeat in one sitting. So I didn't like that either. It gave me some digestive issues. So also it made me super jittery, more so than a cup of coffee. Like it made me really jittery. Coming off of it, when I mean trying to stop the drug, it was really hard. I couldn't sleep when I was on it. I would sleep for maybe 2 or 3 hours a night. It was a wreck. That was probably why I was irritable too, because I wasn't sleeping well. I was losing fat for sure, but it's not a fat burner that I recommend to clients because I've used it and I can tell you right now, it's so addictive because you feel great when you're in the gym. You have all this energy to run. It gives you lots of energy, but then for the rest of the day, you feel like shit. And then what happens is when you try to stop the drug, when you go to the gym, it's like, oh, now I don't feel as good in the gym. So it's like, it's a mental thing. So it was really hard to come off it. I used it in my earlier days, I didn't even use it for competing. I just used it because I wanted to lose fat. I was in my early 20s and stupid. And then I think in 2006, I tried to use it for a show. So I wouldn't do it again. You couldn't pay me to do the ECA stack. I don't recommend it to any of my clients. I think it's dangerous, especially if you have a heart condition. I strongly advise you not to use ephedrine and obviously limit your caffeine intake. You have to be careful with aspirin too. Aspirin, you got to be very careful with the liver. So if you take too much aspirin, that can have effects on your liver enzymes. So all these things, even though that they're over the counter, people just assume that they're safe. They're not. So you have to be very careful and do your research. So if you want my advice, I would strongly advise you to stay away from using the ECA stack. It's not safe. Does it work? Yes, I'm not going to argue and say that it doesn't work because I've done it 3 times and it does work, but it's not worth it, guys. Period. Okay. Nick, I appreciate that you never try and use clickbait to get people to view your online content, but was wondering if you've ever used paid advertising campaigns through IG and Facebook to generate new leads. Also, if you have, what's your experience been like? I'm considering using it for my own coaching business. I've used IG ads and Facebook ads in the past. I think it was probably around 2016. I didn't really notice much of a difference. I don't think we generated any additional leads than we normally do. Our business is primarily a referral-based business. Now, obviously, that's not the only way that you should try to grow a small business. It's an organic way to grow your business, but there's more efficient ways to grow your business than just rely on referrals. So I have tried using those campaigns before. I didn't get much traffic off that. We are launching a new app in 2023 though, and we have a digital marketing company working with us, and we're going to be relying on a lot of SEO advertising with that too for marketing and networking our company, our online app moving forward. So that's the route that I'm going to be taking. I'm not saying that I will not rely on Instagram ads ever again. I'm just saying at that time they didn't work. But moving forward into 2023, I wouldn't say I would not use them. I might try them with the new online app and see if that makes a difference. But I personally didn't know much of a difference. As far as clickbait, I've used clickbait every once in a while, but I do it more to mock. I do it more for fun. Like I might throw something out there and say, so yeah, as of next year, I'm officially retiring. I will no longer be working on the floor, or I'm gone. I'm done. I've had a good ride, but it's time to go. And people go, what? And especially my clients, and then they'll start clicking, what's going on? And that's clickbait. But I've seen people like in their ads on YouTube, and they'll be putting certain words out there and talking about people like Ronnie Coleman making a comeback to the stage, and people, if you're a bodybuilding fan, you're like, what, Ronnie Coleman making back? And then you click on it, and I don't like that because I feel like it's the boy that cried wolf. And people are going to start losing interest in your content. If all your content is clickbait, fool me once, but I'm not going to keep clicking on your stuff. And then if you have something that is actually good content that I might want to view, I'm not going to view it because I'm going to think, well, he or she's just giving me clickbait again. So yeah, I don't like using clickbait very often. I will use it sometimes just for fun, but it's never done in like, oh, I hope I generate a lot of people watching this video. No. Like, for example, when I did the what was it, Nicole Kidman Q&A, I think that got over 2,000 views, which my channel doesn't get that many views. And I didn't even use that for clickbait. It just happened with Nicole Kidman's transformation and had nothing to do with me. But it was quite funny. I thought it was really funny. I was laughing when I saw all these views on it. I'm like, oh, because Nicole Kidman. But no, I don't like to use clickbait, and I really don't think it's a professional way to run your business. Okay. All right, guys. I think we've got, oh, no, we've got one more question or two more questions. Okay. We've got, one more question. Okay, one more question. Here it is. Okay. Nick, do you think it's possible for an average middle-aged woman to build a Kim Kardashian butt? I think she has butt implants or butt injections, but she claims she doesn't. Just want to know if that is even a realistic goal to try and achieve. I don't know anything about Kim Kardashian. I really don't. I heard from a client that Kim Kardashian claims that she does not have butt implants and that she does not do butt injections. I don't know if she does. I've seen her in a few photos. I don't really know much about celebrities, guys. I don't really follow celebrities. I think I've seen her butt in videos online and on photos. Obviously, I mean, you can't help it. Like, she's all over the place. So, I don't know if Kim Kardashian's butt is real or fake. No, so I'm not going to comment on that. Is it realistic? This will depend on your genetics, and you have to have a sense of reality too, right? So, for example, when I was bodybuilding, I looked up to. It's not that I idolized, but I was like, the physiques I looked up to were other white males. And the reason was because, like, I thought, like, some of my favorite bodybuilders were African-American bodybuilders, but I know as a Caucasian male, I'm not going to get that type of physique. My physique might get more closer to the white guy on stage who's got average genetics. So I followed those guys. I'm like, okay, so what did they do? The guys who don't have the best genetics, because if I'm trying to train like the guys who have the best genetics, listen, if I play basketball 8 hours a day, am I going to be as good as LeBron James? Probably not. I mean, there's something to be said about genetics, right? So you have to know your genetics and say, okay, that's not attainable for me, but this is more attainable. So that's one thing. Age plays a role, of course. It's going to be a little bit more challenging to get the same results if you're starting with weights at 45 as opposed to if you were starting with weights at, say, 25. Yes. Now, if you've been training since you were 25 and you're 45, obviously you'll be able to sustain those results. Different story. So for me to say that you can't get a Kim Kardashian ass, I can't say that because I don't know. I don't know your genetics. I always tell my clients, we don't know your true genetic potential. However, if you're looking for a physique that is more attainable for you, try to look towards somebody who has similar genetics as you, right? So like I said, when I was bodybuilding, I used to look at the guys on stage who didn't have the best structure, who didn't have the best genetics. But I said, okay, well, how are they training? Because they're getting the most out of their body. I knew I would never be a professional bodybuilder, or if I did, I would never do well on a stage because I don't have those genetics. And I wasn't willing to do what it took to get to that level either, as far as the performance enhancement drugs. But regardless, even if I did, I know my genetics. I know I would not be able to get a Ronnie Coleman physique, for example, or a Jay Cutler physique. That wasn't going to happen, or Phil Heath physique. That wasn't going to happen. But I can get results that for me, that are the best results. I can optimize whatever I can do with my genetics, what's God's given me, and try to optimize that with what I can do in the gym. So the whole thing now with butts are huge, right? All the women really want to build a bigger butt. It was funny because I was talking to my mom about this last night, and she was telling me back when she was like in her 30s, all the women wanted small butts, and now all the women want big butts. So it's funny how things change, right? Again, if you go to the gym and you train consistently, if you want to build a butt, you do your hip thrusts, you do your squats, you do your glute kickbacks, do your straight leg deadlifts, and you do it consistently, and you eat well. You are doing everything you possibly can to create the butt that you want. But don't set a limitation and say, well, I can't get Kim Kardashian's butt. You might get a better butt than Kim Kardashian. Who knows? Sky's the limit. But at the same time, I would really try to pay attention to those around you who've done what you're trying to accomplish and just look at their genetics, say, well, do I have a similar genetic structure to that person? No. So maybe I should try to look towards what this person is doing because their physique looks similar to mine, and I like their work ethic, and they're doing whatever they can with what God's given them. So, and that's why I tell every client that I work with. And when they say, well, what can I expect in the gym? Like, I don't know. I don't know what you can expect. I have some clients get crazy results in 6 weeks. I have others that work just as hard that might take 6 months. It's just sometimes genetics. Genetics can be a blessing and a curse at the same time, but they're your genetics. You cannot change your genetics. So instead of working against your genetics, work with them and say, okay, I'm going to do the best I possibly can and get the most out of my genetics by training this way, by eating this way, right? As opposed to just setting unrealistic goals and expectations. Anyway, guys, that's it for this week's No Filter Q&A. This episode will be going up on Sunday afternoon. As a reminder, if you do have any questions related to your diet, your training, supplements you're taking, not taking, considering taking, feel free to email me those questions at nick@foreverfitperformance.com, or you can also DM me your questions on my Instagram at @fitcosgrove_. Guys, thank you all so much for watching. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I will see you all next week.